All right, guys, welcome back to Heroes and Men. It's your boy Laris. Today I got a guest. He is a professor at from Andrew Tate's Hustlers University 2.0, of which I'm a student. And this guy has dropped more priceless gems than I could even count. And I'm sure it's just like a tip of the iceberg of what he knows. So I'm going to have him introduce himself, and then we're going to get started, all right?
Yeah, sure, man. Let's see. My name is Arno Wingen. I'm the personal finance professor in Hustlers University. Um, I'm also in. I'm a pretty decent copywriter, sales guy, freelancer, etc. So I did a lot of things, and I did a lot of things well, which is important. Like you can do a lot of things shit, but I did a lot of things well, I think. And basically that's what I try to do is on a daily basis try to add value and have people sort of prevent them making the same mistakes that I've made, and I've made a shitload of mistakes. So if I can help even like one guy each month, prevent the mistakes that I made, that's a good day. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from my personal perspective, in so the tips that you give and inside Hustlers University, guys, for those you don't know, the professors they do like they'll have like announcements and stuff like that, and they'll give sort of it's like wisdom really and personal experience. And just from what I've witnessed, your breadth of understanding of business and the different facets of business has been really eye opening for me. And like you said, I've learned a lot and just not done stupid things simply because I had the information in front of me.
That's good to know. Like in terms of my background, I was in real estate. Let's see, about 15 years, maybe a little more even now. I think I started in 2006, so I was really young when I got in there. Like I was still in school. I'm 37 now, so I'm just counting back because math is not my strong suit. But around 2006 2007 I become like an assistant at a real estate office, and I quickly climbed the ranks. I become an agent, then I become an agency owner, then I learned copywriting, then I learned selling, and from there on out I go to real estate, mortgage business. Then the whole like the financial crisis hit like in 2009, 8, 10, and I make a lot of money out of that because I found out that the money wasn't real, which we'll go into in a bit, and then like around 2019, 2020, I started to get bored about real estate because for me, when I was talking to a prospect, I could basically predict their sentence like three sentences out. I knew what was coming.
Mm,
It was like being psychic, but without actually knowing the future. I could only tell the future like a minute in advance,
okay.
and only when I was talking to prospects. So nothing exciting. And so I got into around that time, like 2000 and the start of or the end of 2020, I believe. I got into war room because of the COVID stuff. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll try to be sort of politically correct.
I mean, you don't
Uh,
have to be, but for your own
oh,
sake, you
good.
do what you want. You don't have to be on my channel. Say
Yeah,
whatever you
exactly.
want to say, man. It's all good.
I'll be nice. So I got in there to talk with like-minded individuals, and things sort of spiraled out from there in a good way. So I became professor, um, started doing some freelance work, got into crypto, started doing more freelance work, and now I'm here. So I'm doing very well, and trying to sort of share whatever I have to share with people, so they level up quicker because it's
Right.
it's I think right now more important than ever. It's important to level up quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people talk about the matrix in certain spaces and stuff like that, and the stuff that I'm learning in there, nowhere was I taught it. Nowhere. I mean, I had no basis with it. I had heard whispers of certain things, But there's a lot of sort of nonsense in the whole success porn, self-development space. And a lot of those people, I feel a lot of those authors, they don't get rich doing the thing they're telling you to get rich doing. They get rich selling the books. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's how they
They're
become
shovel
millionaires.
sellers. Like we used to call them shovel sellers. So when there was like the whole gold rush,
Yeah.
I don't know when was this? Like the
1848.
yeah, exactly. So the people that got really, really rich were the people selling shovels and
Yeah.
donkeys, like supplies. That's really a great business.
That's actually how Donald Trump's grandfather got rich.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
yeah. His
didn't know.
I think it was his grandfather's whoever the first Trump was, like the first one of his family to come over. He was selling shovels during the Great Gold Rush.
Like
In
the first
1848.
Trump that I know is the guy that took all the suitcases from Tesla and with the research. Like he had an uncle that took all the suitcases for the government, and then the conspiracy guys have a field day with that. That's awesome.
Well, evidently, there's a lot of that in the family, so it's whatever. But
Yeah, exactly.
so you're from Holland, right?
Yeah, correct.
So a little diversion, just because I like this guy so much. 4 World Cups ago, who was the bald-headed guy that ran faster than everyone else? Robin?
Oh shit. Yeah, I know. We had Wesley Sneijder, who was a little like midfield player, and then Robin van Persie. He scored a lot of goals.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of great players, but we never get to the World Cup. It sucks. Like
Yeah, you guys.
yeah, we don't win it. It's always the Germans. Fucking Germans.
they're like the machine, bro. It's crazy, man. Anyway, so you're from Holland, which has a great sort of mercantile background. The great,
Yeah.
the great mercantile empire that you guys had. New York. I live in New York now, and New York was a Dutch colony at one point.
We owned that. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys probably should have held on to that one, man.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, looking back, yeah, that's true.
So where did your sort of your business acumen come from? Was that something you were raised with, or something you developed coming up? Is it cultural?
I was raised in like the most blue pill, beta, liberal, Disney household in the world. Like,
Nice.
I mean, I sort of my dad had his own business. So to be fair, like he had his own business. He repaired television sets for people.
Mm.
And this was in a time when you could do that. Like right now, the televisions are like this, but they used to be like that, like big, hulking things. I remember helping him out with carrying televisions, and they were heavy. And you could actually repair stuff, and it would make sense. Right now, it doesn't make sense to get your television fixed because it would cost more than a television. Anyway,
Mhm.
so he had his own business, and that was in the like I was born in 1984, and like the high times for this sort of business was like end of 80s, beginning of the 90s, and then at the end of the 90s it started going downhill. And like my dad was like a full-blown autist. Like the guy was autistic as fuck. It still is, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen him for 7 months because of his autistic tendencies. Like we disagreed on like let's say it like this. I made the case that it would make sense if we gave people the choice to get a vaccination or not, and he went like full nuclear, saying that if you think anything else but to force people to vaccinate, you're retarded.
Oh man.
And like my girl didn't like that, and basically said, well, you're eating our food, now you're going nuclear saying we're retards. I think you have to leave. And and I haven't seen him since.
Oh
So
man.
so that was intense. Anyway, so when I went to school. I was an athlete until I was about 18, 19. I played soccer, I played basketball, but I excelled in handball, which is a pretty obscure sport. Like it's full contact, similar to football.
Wait.
And
So handball. Okay, so handball in America is where you have like a blue rubber ball and you
yeah, it's
hit it
not
with your
that.
hand against it. It's not that.
No,
Okay.
it's not that. It's
Okay.
basically like football, but you throw the ball in the goal instead of like kicking it, and you get to push people aside, and basically it's very similar to American football in a way. Like it's not
Okay.
as violent, but it's close. It's a combination of rugby and football. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So I got pretty good at that, but my ankle kept getting hurt, and I had some injuries. So I was planning to be like a gym teacher actually,
Hmm.
and that didn't work out because of my bad ankle. And then I went out to be like a doctor because I was smart enough. Making exams was never an issue. Like I can basically pass any test in a very short amount of time. That's easy. But I found out that being a doctor wasn't my thing because at that time when I was like 18, 19, I was also autistic as fuck.
Really?
So yeah, 100%. Like I, I would just tell, like, we had this. I remember the assignment that made me quit school. So I'm in like doctor class, and they have this hypothetical patient, and they have to do their exercise to get better. And the patient comes in and basically tells you that he didn't do his exercise. And what do you answer? And my answer was, listen, man, if you don't want to do the exercise, get the fuck out of my office because I don't have time for this bullshit. That was not the right answer. That was not what you need to do.
Yeah. That is the opposite of bedside manner, my friend.
Get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you? So I got shot down bad over that answer. And that day I quit school. So yeah, I'm out of here. This is not me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I quit school, and the next year, in between, like I had like almost a year in between, so I became a chef. It's bizarre, but I did. I worked in a restaurant. I got pretty good at cooking, and then I started studying economics, and that went pretty well. Like I quit in the third year because it was getting too retarded, but until the third year, it went pretty well.
Yeah.
And I got into real estate, and there was this opportunity to be like an independent real estate agent to start your own office. And I remember bringing it up with my dad, and he said, "Well, son, you never you couldn't sell a shit house in a diarrhea epidemic. Like you're retarded. Why the hell would you start selling? You're a moron, basically."
Mhm.
So my dad wasn't the most gentle person in the world to be, to state it lightly. And so of course I went into it immediately to prove him wrong.
Sure. Of course.
Got into business, learned everything the hard way, and basically just by sheer stubbornness or pig-headedness made it. That was basically it. Like I had the ability to look back at what I did wrong and actually recognize that I was being a moron, that I was making stupid mistakes, and that saved me because a lot of people don't have that ability for whatever reason. I don't know. It's maybe it's threatening or something. I don't know. But if you make a mistake, it makes sense to look back and actually recognize the fact that you're making a mistake and you're being dumb.
Right. Right.
Let me for 1 second. Let me get a cigar for 1 minute.
Yeah. 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 No worries.
I'm back.
What kind of cigar is that?
I actually don't know. So I went to meet with a client today, and he gave me some limited edition Romeo y Julieta and Upman and Hoyo de Monterrey. But these are Cubans, but they
Mm.
don't have like a band. I like them, but I have no idea what they are. So I'll report back when I find out.
All right.
They're pretty good though.
Sounds good. So you basically you went in, I guess, in the face of your father, and you just plowed forward, bulldozed forward, and then you became a success. That's one thing that I noticed about you in your videos. For those of you who don't know, Hustlers University, the professor, Arno makes videos for us, dispelling a lot of wisdom and gems, like I said before. And one of the things that I noticed is you're so direct, forceful, and intentional with the things you say.
Yeah.
And I want to know, is that something you picked up in business, or is that just the way you've always been, or something you've had to develop?
A bit of both. Like, imagine like someone that is autistic, right? You know how they are. There's no filter. Like they just give you, and usually they give you like their stupid opinion. Like honestly, like autistic people have this aura of being super intelligent. They're if you look at emotional IQ, so what is that, EQ?
Mm,
They're really low. They're borderline retarded on that scale, right? And so I always had that where I just told people, well, in my medical example, that's a good thing. Get the fuck out of here. I don't have time for this bullshit.
yeah,
So I get into selling, and I find out that that's not the best way to handle this,
right.
right? People don't respond well to that. So that certainly helped. But what really helped, actually, I recorded a video about that today. I have to edit it so it'll drop in the next like 3 or 4 days. But is when I heard some guy recommend that if you do a sales pitch, to record it and listen back to what you're saying, to your voice, and then you'll know how much you suck. And I did that, and like I sucked bad. Like I all the sentences were like laced with and pauses.
Mm,
Everything was uncomfortable. I was repeating stuff that I shouldn't repeat. I was leaving out stuff that I should say. And that is basically the main, I think the biggest driver to being more clear in communication, to be aware of like your issues. Like there's certain things you do, like words you rehearse, ums and ahs, stuff that you do, and it comes across. People don't pick up on it like consciously usually, but they do subconsciously.
sure.
And if you're talking out of your ass, people know it just because of those things. And if you're in sales, you can't talk out of your ass. Like I was always like, I made it a point to always be above average in price point. And if you're like in the Netherlands, we have the average commission that a real estate agent gets. I think in the US it's like 6% or 5% or whatever, and you split it between agents. I'm not sure about the exact detail, but in the Netherlands it's lower. It's like 1.5% or something, and it only goes to you, to the selling agent. And I was always at 2.2%. I have no idea why. It's just a thing that I did. And if you present price and you don't keep a straight face or you hesitate, people pick up on it. Like it's a primal thing that they just pick up on. So in terms of like where did I learn the whole trading mercantile thing, it was just really bad experiences again and again and again, and listening to myself and seeing how much I sucked.
Right. So you're not afraid to, clearly, you're not afraid to self-evaluate and to hold yourself to a certain standard.
It's the only way, man. It's the only way. I remember I told this story in a video recently where, so we have, I'm sure you have it in the US as well. We have for sale by owners. So people selling their house by themselves. So not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recruiting an agent, right?
We got that here. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And in general, these people don't like agents, because if they did, they would have, asked an agent to sell their home.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes when I was the guy that called these people, because any other agent in the office wouldn't call these people because they were nasty and rude. When you called them, they would tell you to piss off or whatever.
Mhm.
And I got pretty damn good at it, because the fact that I wrote a script, and I just, I knew what they were going to say before they were going to say it, and I knew before they knew, because there's like a certain amount of responses that a human being gives you,
Sure.
and like you can sort of predict what they're going to say, and I got pretty good at that, because it was just like memorizing responses, and if you got confused, you looked down at your page and you knew, right?
Yeah.
um so that was my first foray into selling, but also into sort of predicting what people were going to do and what people were going to say. And it taught me that it was pretty predictable, really. Like, people in general respond the same. That's the reason why I can do marketing for a company here, and I can do marketing for a company in America, and I can do the same thing for a company in whatever, in Mongolia or so. Are there companies in Mongolia? I have no idea.
I'm
Like,
sure there are. I'm sure there
yeah, I have the idea that it's all horses and huts, but probably there's probably businesses there. But it's all the same. Like, people are the same. People are really the
Yeah.
same. And one of
Yeah.
the annoying things, if you consult with businesses, every single business owner has this religious belief that his business is different. And it's not different, because you're dealing with people, and people are all the same. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's difference between Russians and Americans and Chinese, yes, of course. But in general, like on a large scale, we're all the same.
I mean, that's how our species survive, is pattern recognition,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm big into the Greeks and the Romans, and I just read Carl Jung's Ion. I don't know if you ever read that book. I know you've read like 2,000 books or something crazy like that, right?
Which book was that?
Ion by C.G. Jung, by Carl Jung.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. I,
Um,
I, I think I read everything by Jung. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm on a huge Jung trip right now, and the
Yeah.
understanding that we think that what we're going through right now is what we're going through right now, and it's never happened before, but millions of people have gone through it, and gone through the same behavior patterns over and over and over again. And
It
so,
keeps going. Yeah.
yeah, it definitely keeps going. And one of the main reasons why I brought this channel up is so the little subheader I have is resurrecting the masculine archetypes, or the archetypes of manhood, because I think that there's a severance of that in our society right now. I think we got a lot of soy boys, and
No, that's for
it's
sure.
true. It's true, and like Andrew Tate says, cowardice, like an epidemic of cowardice. He says that's the real pandemic, and I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. And I think a lot of that has to do because we have forgotten these ancient patterns, right? These ancient archetypes that we are supposed to what's the model ourselves after
Yes,
in
exactly.
order to
Yeah.
have success in the world, right?
Yeah.
Um, Asking you, what does the word manhood mean to you? Like, what are the virtues of the men you respect? And yeah, what are the virtues for you?
So, as I've said, like, I was raised in a non masculine environment,
Right.
and I had I think I was sort of lucky that I was like athletically inclined. I was always good at that. So when you're young, and you get, like, I got into team sports, and they sort of, when you're young, they give you sort of the best trainers, but not the best in the sense of people skills. Like, I remember every one of my trainers vividly, and I can't remember the name. There's this movie about a guy that gets like that gets in a jazz band, and he gets drum training from some dude.
It just came out, Whiplash,
Exactly,
where he
that's it.
throws the cymbal at his head.
Exactly. Like, I think, like, out of the five trainers that I had as a young athlete, four out of five were like that. And I think 4 out of 5 threw a ball or something else at my face, just directly, just full psychopath, complete insane. So I'm very comfortable with that type of coaching, and I don't mind at all. So I'm like I seen like grown people being absolutely destroyed in the field by trainers saying you're a moron, you're an asshole, you're worthless, you're a retard. And like I said before, like my dad was the same way. Not because it was like his intention, but because that's just. I remember him coming to my first ever game, and his comment was, "Yeah, you should throw the ball harder. You're weak," which is like a hardcore thing to say to an 8-year-old. Like I was 8. Yeah. I'm a father now myself. That's hardcore, even for me. So what my masculine experiences were mostly with either absolute beta males or like complete psychopath, which is an interesting way to learn about masculinity. I remember having 2 girlfriends when I was 18, and my parents sort of staging an intervention, basically saying, "Hey, this is like this is haram." They weren't Muslim, but this was their summary. That you can't do this. It's impossible. You can't have 2 girlfriends. Like, and this is a different time. Keep in mind, like this is shit. When I was 18, that was like 18 years ago. Yeah, like 19 years ago. This was a different time. Like there was no internet, almost no. Like it was different. Like right now, I think they would have responded differently. But so it was a special way to grow up. But what I growing up in athletics, and after that, having to fend for myself in business, um, the whole thing about being absolutely 100% responsible for what happens to you, that got sort of hammered in real well. So I had a lot of experiences with people either disappointing me or stealing from me, or those kind of things. And when things started going right for me was when I started taking full responsibility of that and basically saying, I hired this guy, I partnered with this guy, I I did this, and even if I didn't do it, I'm still responsible for my response to it.
Right.
So that's what I have to do. And I think that's my main focus of masculinity. Well, whenever someone says, like, it's not my fault, I couldn't do anything about it, it's really sad, I wish it didn't happen to me, it makes me it makes me angry, really. Like whenever someone does it, because it's like 180 degrees from the way I view the world. Like whatever happens to you. I was talking to another professor from Hustlers University, to Luke, and we were on a yacht, and he said, like, if a nuke drops right now, right where we're sitting, and that's my fault, because I knew that maybe I shouldn't have gone to Dubai, to the Arab Emirates, right? And maybe there's a bigger chance of a nuke dropping here compared to anywhere else in the world. And I very much identify with that view of the world. Like everything is your fault, not so much your fault, but more your responsibility, and you get a chance to respond to it, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome, man. Jocko Willink talks about that. He's a Navy SEAL.
100%, yeah. I like it.
And he goes, I mean, I don't know if those guys could do their job if there wasn't absolute responsibility on everybody's end. You know what I mean?
I remember I had a Navy SEAL as a client actually once. He came from America and relocated to the Netherlands, and a very interesting guy, very intense guy. And we had some sort of issue come up. Like I sold his house, and like the buyer had some sort of issue come up, and I went to the buyer and I figured it out, and then I reported back to the seller, to him, and he said, "Yeah, that's interesting, man. Close distance and shut it down." And I'm like, well, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, CD SD." I have no idea what you're talking about. Tell me. He said in the Navy SEALs, you get taught a certain motto, and that's close distance and shut it down. When something comes up that is unexpected in the mission, you go to it and you shut it down. You fix it right then and there. There's
Wow.
no talking about it. There's no meetings about it. You just go and do it, and you neutralize the threat. And like unbeknownst to me, I did that, and he liked it. But I think that's one of the things that you can pick up from Jocko Willink is a sense that if something comes up, it's up to you to fix it. Like the world isn't coming to help you. Trust me, it's only coming to fuck things up even worse.
Wow. And that's not a message. It's a message almost nobody gets now.
True.
Definitely in the mainstream. It wasn't always the case, but in the last 20 years or whatever. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of it has to do, at least in America, is this proliferation of like therapists. Look, if you've got real psychological issues, whatever, right? Like if you're like really fucked up, then it's one thing. But does everybody need a therapist? Does everybody have to talk to a therapist, or do we just kind of got to get on with it? And
I don't like the whole mental health thing, man.
no.
I had two, I think, two business partners, basically from one day to the next, bail out. Well, separate times, not at the same time, but and they blamed mental health issues, and they just disappear, and they don't even throw themselves off a building. Like that would fix the issue, right?
Right.
But they just disappear. Like I have a burnout, now I'm gone. Fuck that, man, dude. I mean, if you're a man, you can't just leave and say a mental health issues. Oh, fuck off. At least jump off a building so I can see it, dude.
So I can see it. Put it up on TikTok.
Yeah, just, see it blow up. But they don't even do that courtesy. It's embarrassing.
They have these crazy Ukrainian
In Japan,
guys.
they have it's seppuku, where they stick the sword in their.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Let's bring that back. Make seppuku great again.
Like, I mean, these guys are so intense. Like, the losing is so dishonorable that they're willing to impale themselves with a sword, man.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have mental health issues, do that for me, and I believe you.
That's why I think one of the that's they say is one of the reasons the Americans dropped the atomic bomb is because they couldn't beat the Japanese. They could not beat them. They fought so hard. They were just so tenacious that these guys are like, what the fuck, man?
It's funny, man. I see people asking me, like, how do you see the whole Russia-Ukraine thing going? And in general, like the whole East versus West. There's no way you can ever hope to beat Russia in armed conflict. It's never going to happen. Like these people are absolutely batshit insane. They will do anything, and you have no idea what these people are capable of. Like they are absolutely insane. I would never fight a Russian, especially in Russia. Don't do it. Napoleon found out, and then Hitler found out. It's not a good thing. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, they're a hard people, dude. Hard people.
100%. Yeah, they will go to any length. And like in the Western world, even you and I, we wouldn't do that. Like I wouldn't burn my own house down just to fuck with the enemy. I wouldn't do that.
No.
And they would just do it. Yeah, sure. Fuck it. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Talk to me about the difference between thinking and program. You made a video between thinking and program. Critical thinking, first of all. So I worked in the Department of Education here in New York City. I didn't like.
That's rough.
Yeah, I didn't like them to begin with, and I have a vitriolic hatred for these fucking people after working there for.
I hope they never find this video, man.
It's buried away somewhere. I don't know. I don't read it, but these people, they are teaching them anything but how to think. It's actually when people talk about conspiracy theorists X, Y, and Z. It's not. I saw them indoctrinate kids live and in person, and I had to leave eventually because I kept getting into fights with teachers because I was like, "What the fuck are you people doing?"
Yeah.
So that's an obvious answer for why a lot of people I think don't think, at least in America. But what is the difference to you between critical thinking or thinking and programming?
So let's talk about NPCs, so non-playing characters.
Right.
Um, if I take the Matrix analogy, like there's this scene where Neo and Morpheus, Neo sort of takes Morpheus into the Matrix, and he says, "Well, all these people are like they're carpenters, they're accountants, they're titans of industry. They do their job, and most of these people aren't ready to be woken up and they will cling to the Matrix with every fiber of their being because this is their being, right? And if we call these people NPCs, like they're in the simulation, they're in the world. We can't deny it. You can touch them, you can push them, that they're there. But for most people only have options. They have no choices. So if I play a game and I engage an NPC in dialogue, it shows you the dialogue options. So I say, what do you feel about inflation? And the NPC has three options, and only three. That's it. And the fourth one is usually goodbye, and then you can play on, get your game going again. Should you make the mistake of somehow accidentally make a fourth option or tell them something that's not in their programming, they freak out. Like they either don't answer you or they get angry or they have some sort of response that is indicative of the fact that it's very unpleasant for them to talk to you. So the way I see that in the world in general is, I'll take a real life example. I was talking to my dad when we were still talking, and I remember he was always bringing up Trump. I was never bringing up Trump, by the way, because I knew whenever I brought it up, he went full, like, I mean,
They lose their
it's
mind, man. It's crazy.
yeah, like a trigger warning.
I've
You
never
shouldn't.
seen anything like it. Like a possession. I'm
It
like,
was very
whoa.
special. Yeah,
I just said Trump. I didn't even say the whole name, man. Relax.
people went insane, man. Yeah, they still haven't got over it. By the way, it
No.
left a gap in the whole of reality.
Oh, wow.
So I remember him going to North Korea and crossing the border and shaking hands with the little rocket man. Remember the
Mm-hmm.
little fat guy? And I remember him bringing it up, and I'm saying, "Hey, that's to be fair, it's a pretty good thing to cross the border and shake hands with the little rocket man, right? It's much better than nuking them, right?"
Right.
And he was unable to acknowledge that. Like he just went back to his programming saying, "No, Orange Man bad because XYZ." And then I went back again saying, "No, but I mean, he hasn't bombed anyone in years, and he hasn't started any new wars, and he hasn't killed anyone else, and that's a good thing, right?" No, no, Orange Man bad because, and it just kept going, circling back to the options that were available to him.
Right.
And in Hustlers University, sometimes people say, like, I'd love to have, wake people up or, have people on the same path. And the truth is that you really can't do it unless they're ready for it. Like if they're looking to get out of it, they'll find it. But if they're not, you can't shake them out of it. It's just the simulation has them in their grasp, and it's too painful to get out.
Mm.
That's what I think, at least. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the allegory of the cave?
Yeah, from Plato, right?
Yeah. So the Matrix movie was inspired by that, and
Mm,
Socrates and Glaucon was the conversation he's having. So Aristotle wrote in like sort of like it's like a dialogue, like all of,
yeah.
um, and he talked about like when they first start to break out, when because he's talking about basically the one figure that's tied and chained, and he says when he first starts to break out, like all of his limbs hurt because he's
Yes.
never moved before.
Exactly. Why do
right?
your
And
eyes hurt? Yeah.
yeah, why do your
Yeah.
eyes hurt? Because I've never used them before. But then he goes and the guy escapes out of that, and he sees the trees and the animals and the other whatever and the other people that have been freed, and then he can go and he can comment on the sun. And that's in essence is like that being able to comment on the truth, to look at the truth square in the eye, and then just have
Wow.
no feeling about it.
I
But he
didn't
talks
know
about,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what the meaning is. The intellect is just being able to look at truth, and that's what it is. And then this is how I have to navigate the world. But
Yeah.
then the story continues, and he goes, "Well, what happens when he descends again?" And he tries to save people that he
Yeah.
knew when he was down there.
Yeah.
And one of the things is they'll try to kill you.
It's true. Yeah.
So like
Rather
that's what it,
than, embracing reality.
right.
Yeah.
And,
No, 100%.
yeah, and so that's always interesting. So
I read
the
a
other
book
thing,
by Slavoj Žižek, Welcome to the Desert of the Real. And do you know Žižek?
he's the communist guy, right? That he
Yeah, and he has this
created
weird he's
like
yeah,
he's got like a
the guy is clearly nuts, but he, despite his tendencies, he writes good books. And
yeah.
I remember a line out of Welcome to the Desert of the Real, which is also taken from the Matrix. And he says that, when we have like a terrorist thing going on, and let's say 30 people die, like I was thinking about the London terror attack with the guy with the knives, but he only killed like 2 people, which is amateur. Like, I mean, if you or I would go killing people with swords, like I would take down more than 2. I can tell you that. Like, at least train, pussy. Uh, what kind of weird guy are you? But anyway, and he says if we have
Well,
like,
in America, we wouldn't use knives.
yeah, well, yeah, we only have knives. Like the government took everything else. Yeah,
That's right.
but but the guy says if we have like 30 deaths, that's like a big thing. Like and in Africa, like every single day, probably every fortnight or something, 3 times as many people die from terrorist attacks, and we don't give a fuck because that's not our reality. We don't even acknowledge that. Like, that's not. I mean, if it happens in Paris, it's real. If it happens in Mogadishu, like, who the fuck cares? Like, that's not real. Like, those people aren't real, and that's a very sobering insight into the NPC world, where only their stuff is real. All the rest is just, it's, yeah, well, it's there, and I'll not acknowledge it, but it's not really real. Right? It's not my reality.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. In America, race is obviously a big thing. Race isn't
Yes,
fucking real. It's horseshit. But in America, in people's minds, it's like very real. And when
that's
you talk,
super interesting. By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt,
no, go ahead.
but for me, racism when I was growing up, I think I saw my first black guy when I was like 10. Like, it isn't even a thing here. Like, everyone is white. I remember my kid. He was like, my oldest son was 7, and I don't know if you know, but we have in the Netherlands we have this. So we have Christmas at December 25, and we call it Sinterklaas, so Saint Nicholas, at December 5. And Saint Nicholas was some kind of holy man, and he had some servants, and the servants were black, of course, because of course, like the holy man, whatever, right? And they call them Black Pete, and Black Pete was the helper of Saint Nicholas. And right now in the folklore, it's like Saint Nicholas is more or less like a more of a helpless old man, and Black Pete takes care of him and makes sure that all the presents get to the kids in time. So I remember walking through the supermarket, and there's a black guy filled with tattoos, like a huge guy. Like, I'm 6 foot, and that guy was like 6'6", like a huge guy. And my kid like pointing straight at him in his face, saying, "Hey, Black Pete has tattoos. How about that?" And the guy broke out of laughter, luckily. But it was so foreign to them. Like they'd never seen that before.
Wow.
And I can just imagine, like, also, same thing goes for the Jews, by the way. I didn't even know that being Jewish was a thing until I was like 14 or 15. It's just not a thing at all here. Like we don't, it doesn't even register. But all the stuff with racism and religion, like I was talking to a guy from Northern Ireland when I was in Dubai, and he was really, about the Catholics and the Protestants. And same thing. I found out when I was like 16 that there was a difference. Fuck do
Yeah.
I? But I completely agree. Like it's very much like media narrative driven to
Yeah.
get that divide going, because
Yeah.
I didn't even know, and I didn't even care either, and I
It's
still
one of
don't.
well, it's one of those things. It's like I think the average person is kind of like whatever,
Yeah,
but these people, they control the media, the movies, the television shows, da da da. And I'm an actor, so I'm in the industry. Yeah, I can
yeah,
see it. So they give me the script, and it's like, oh, that you obviously have a message or some shit you want to say. Okay,
yeah,
right? Like anybody with half a brain would see it, and I would have these conversations. This is when I knew that I was different, and I was gonna have a rough time in it. Because I would bring this stuff up and be like, "What are you talking about?" Like it was the NPC thing. It was like they had no
yeah,
idea what I was talking. I was like, you can't see the script, like what they're trying to say, and they just had no idea. And so in America, everything is about race, and then you realize it's just like billionaires and millionaires that got money, like you know what I mean, like they're not,
no, the money doesn't care if you're black or white.
it doesn't, it's green or whatever
Yeah,
color it is, or whatever rainbow color. So on that
yeah.
note, what is money?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Holy shit, yeah. All right, so let's get into this, because like a lot of people have been harassing me to do another video on this. I did a video on, like, it was a Hustlers University exclusive video about money, and like the original message was how I got sort of woken up to the matrix, how I got red pilled, and not red pilled in the incel women are bad kind of way, because I
Right.
that never really happened.
Yeah.
But more red pilled in like waking up to reality.
Right.
So I'm in real estate. It's 2009, and I just leased a new office. And I remember sort of the news of like Lehman Brothers collapsing. So I'm in real estate, so I have some estimation of what this means, and I've been keeping tabs on it. And I remember the day after, like a Dutch newspaper called me because I did like an article about it. I was the only one, I think, in the entire Netherlands, basically saying we're fucked. This is going to get way worse before it gets better. So the journalist asked me like, what do you make of this? And I basically say, well, uh, I mean, to make it easy for you guys, we in the U.S. and also like worldwide, we've been lending money to people that have no chance, not at all, of paying it back, and we've been promising them low rates for a limited amount of time, and that time is up. And we've been borrowing money based on like real estate growing forever, and you have an entire generation now of people thinking that real estate never drops in value. So what do you think is going to happen? And I swear to God, the journalist had no idea. Like he didn't know what he should answer. And he said, well, I mean, what do you think? And I said, well, I think we're fucked. That's basically what I think. I mean, we're fucked for years on end. Like this is going to last for a long time. So they posted the interview, and I immediately got in trouble with the local real estate board because you can't say that sort of thing.
Sure.
In the end, I turned out to be right, but they still didn't like it. So what I found out, you have this. Let's see, you have a house, and people always ask me, when I was in real estate. Like, why is the house worth $300,000, $200,000, $500,000? And if you look at like the material cost, it's not worth 500,000. It's not even worth 50,000. It's bullshit, right? And maybe you can say the spot that it was built upon is worth a certain amount of money, but it never adds up. In reality, what I found out was the fact that a house is worth whatever the bank is willing to loan a buyer to buy it.
Mm.
And I really found out when so the real estate market was collapsing. And I remember we had like maybe, let's say, 50 calls in week 1 of 2009 or something. Then the crisis hit and 50 went down to like 3 of people wanting to buy houses. It went to shit like immediately. It was really bizarre to see. Like as if everyone got the same programming at the same time. It was really bizarre.
Oh.
So things sort of slow down like drastically, and I still have to make rent, right? Because I just leased a new building, and I figured out after maybe a few weeks that real estate had dropped like 20%, maybe 25%, like right away. But the market hadn't caught up. So you had people with a $200,000 home, and they were able to sell for 150K, but they thought they had a $200,000 home. So if you're a normal seller, so if you're a seller and you want to buy something new, I can't convince you to sell your 200K home if you believe it to be worth 200K for 150K. Even though that's a real value, I can't convince you. So we started having a lot of like people divorcing, people separating, some people dying, like all the nasty things where people had to sell their house, right?
Wow.
And so they were forced to sell it, and they were forced to sell it quick, like tax bills, sort of that stuff. And this formed a new problem because now I have this house, and these people have a whole mortgage of like, in the Netherlands it was even weirder than most other places. If you bought a $200,000 house, you get a mortgage of like 220,000 for whatever reason. So everyone took a 220K mortgage, right? Now you have 220K debt on a 150K asset, which is a problem because now I'm the guy that's supposed to sell it. So this kept happening, and we kept getting offers, and the offers were good, but it's hard to sell something because most people don't have 70K laying around just to pay off the mortgage. Especially if you're dead, you don't have it laying around.
Right.
Makes sense. And if you're in a divorce, you don't have it laying around either. So I get to this point where I know the offer is solid. I know it's not going to be more than this. So I call the bank, and I get transferred to some sort of like department, and I say to the girl, "Hey, this home is worth 150K, and you have a 220K mortgage, but it's not going to be worth more, and it's not going to be worth more in the next 5 years. So you can either foreclose on it, and then it's going to probably be like 130K, or you can sell it." And the girl goes back to her manager or something, and she comes back and she says, "Yeah, sure, sell it." And I say, "Yeah, well, I mean, I'm fine with that, but how can I sell it? Because you're going to say that you need 220." And she says, "No, we'll write it off." And I'm like, "How do you mean write it off? Where's the 70K going to come from?" And I mean the 75K, because you have to pay me 5K as well, right? And she says, "No, it's we'll just scratch it out in the system." And well, and it was clear she didn't know what she was talking about either. She was just trying to get me off the phone. So I say, "Sure, let's do it." hang up the phone, sell the house, get to the in the Netherlands we have a notary. I think maybe they have a lawyer in America. I don't know, but you have the closing.
Mm.
Someone has to preside over the closing to make sure that everything is all right. So I get to the notary and I sit there, basically with my butt cheeks clenched, hoping that it's going to work. Right. So the notary closes, sets his like signature, and as soon as he's done, I ask him like, "Hey man, what's up? How does this work? I don't understand. Like, how can you even sign for this? Because there's the money isn't. Where's the money? Where did the money come from? Who chipped in the 70K?" And he said, "Well, the 70K doesn't have to be here. The bank just have to say we're okay with getting 70K less." So I start thinking and I start researching. And it turns out what actually happens when a bank gives you a mortgage, they sort of create money from the sky. So if you have like $1,000 in your vault, you can give someone like maybe $100,000 in mortgage, maybe $50,000, but it's a massive leverage over what you actually have in your vault. And I found that out, started digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and became like the biggest real estate agent in the Netherlands, selling houses that that were underwater, that had higher mortgages than what they're worth, because I deeply understood all of a sudden how this worked. The money isn't real. That money never existed in the first place. It was just debt being pumped into the system. It was never real. Like the bank giving you a mortgage for 100K, that 100K isn't there. It's just they write it down, and because they write it down, it's real, but it's not real. It's just what they made up, and it's a tough thing to convey to people. I tried to convey it to a lot of people. I remember trying to tell this to my father, tell it to my mother, tell it to my brother. No one gets it because it's so it breaks your brain when you think about
Right.
it. It's all bullshit. It's not real.
So then, because this leads me to the next question, right? Is right. There are a couple. There's nature versus nurture. There are people that are so exceptional that that against all odds they make it anyway. But it seems to me, and this is actually a video in reference to something Tate actually put out. He goes, "Look, man, I've been at the highest echelons of society, and many of these people are absolutely average. They just have a
Yes,
lot of money."
100%.
So my question to you is, what is the mindset somebody needs to adopt before they actually have the money, if that's even possible, to get the millionaire mind, right? To actually do it so that their brain breaks. Because if you have these belief systems and these patterns that you're accustomed to using, these thought patterns, they have to be dismantled in a way and then replaced with
Yes,
something else. So
yes.
what sort of mental model does someone need to have in order to become a millionaire before they actually have the money coming to them?
That's a great question. Um, so I've been planning out my video, my script sort of for my video about like the follow up on how money isn't real, how to get out of the matrix, right?
Right.
I remember when I got into the short sale thing where you sell homes and you help people get out even though the debt is higher than the value. And I remember getting some fame, going on TV, and I got invited for a pilot for a TV program in the Netherlands where they would. It was some sort of real estate show.
Mm.
Um, I go there, and what stands out to me most, like I don't know how it is with you, but if I try to remember stuff from my past, some people have this like crystal clear memory of exactly where they were and what happened. I don't have that. I have like these flashes, like something showing up out of the fog, and then you see
Mm,
it, and then there's fog again. I remember very vividly being in the studio, and there was this family, and they were supposed to be the sellers, and they had a kid. The kid was like 5 or 6, and they were coaching the kid on what she should uh, draw on her little page, how she should come into the room, what she should say to her parents spontaneously. And they were doing this like 7, 8, 9, 10 takes. And every take, she would come in with a different drawing, go up to her parents and say, "Hey, mommy and daddy, look what I made." And then she had a different script. After that, I could never watch television again. It was all bullshit.
yeah.
Like, you're an actor, you know this.
It's all bullshit, my friend. It's all
Most
horseshit.
people never know. Most people have no. I had no idea. Like, I was. How old was
Bullshit.
I? Like, let's see, 27 or something, 26. I had no idea. Like, I was a virgin coming into this, and I saw them coaching the kid. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit! Everything I ever saw was bullshit.
It's all a
All the
facade.
spontaneous, funny jokes. It was all bullshit.
It's all bullshit.
And I had the same feeling with money. I remember, mm, I remember also on TV, I pissed off like the in the United States you had Freddie May and Bernie Mac.
Sure.
They sort of undersigned mortgages to make sure they were safe, right? We had
Right.
the same thing in the Netherlands, but in your case they went bust pretty quick. In our case, they kept floating. And I pissed off like the head guy at like our Freddie May. And I was on vacation, and the guy blew up my phone. He called me like 15 times, and I told him to piss off. And we actually met on a television show where he was supposed to defend his side, and I absolutely annihilated him. Which it wasn't really hard. Like obviously, it was all bullshit. And I remember doing the whole program, and at the end, he says, "All right, I see Arno's point. If you're one of those consumers and you're hit by this tragic crisis, please, I want to hear your story. Send me an email. Call me at this number." And the guy was like, for me, he was sincere. Like the guy was actually, I was impressed. Turns out the next week the guy goes on like he goes on leave. He leaves for another company, and then another woman takes over, and she said, "Yeah, fuck all that. I'm not gonna honor that all stuff. Like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna honor those promises. Just fuck those people. We're just gonna foreclose on them. Whatever." That was also a red pill moment. Um, but in terms of like all the people that I've talked to that are like high net worth and pretty well connected, upper echelon of society, these people understand that the like a media narrative, the rules, quote unquote rules, those are for peasants. They're not real. Like the
Right.
real people, I mean, the upper echelon doesn't believe in that bullshit at all. And someone asked me, I think this morning or last morning, how can I make money off the Russia Ukraine thing? The way you make money off that is by ignoring it completely and focusing on your own shit until you reach like a decent amount of income, a decent amount of money, and then you can focus on that all that stuff if you want, and you'll find out that it's all bullshit anyway. The whole narrative is bullshit. No one is going to war. Like I said, Vladimir knows what he's doing. Just leave him do his thing. It's not your problem. Fuck off. Um, for now, the only thing you can do, in my humble opinion, is like focus on your craft, focus on your skill, make money, build your network, and don't even worry about all that like noise like all the macroeconomic. Because even people keep asking me, like, do a video about how money isn't real, and I'll do a video about it, but I'll do it in the same vein that I'm talking to you now, basically saying it doesn't help you to know that the whatever the Rothschilds and the other people are controlling the money supply. It doesn't even help you. Like, what the fuck does it help you to make money if you know that money isn't real and someone else is printing all the money? Your government doesn't even control the money. It's a third party that's not government related, and it's on like Jekyll Island. I can tell you all those things, but it doesn't help you at all. Like, for you, focus on your craft, focus on your network, make money, get to the upper echelon, and then yes, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk about the reptilian overlords and the aliens, sure, I'll amuse you, but but until then, let's just make money. Let's focus on that.
When was it that you realized that you were in the another level? Like when you surpassed NPC, blue pill, middle class, you were like, oh shit, you realize the air is different up here. The people move different, speak different, act different. When was that? When did you realize that? And how did you psychologically, were you already sort of prepared for it? Or it was kind of like, okay, it just took a minute to sort of realize that?
I remember I won some sort of award when I was in real estate. So I first won some sort of award for my company, and in 2017 I won the award for like the best agent in the Netherlands, like countrywide. I remember the after party talking to NPCs, like people that were absolutely clueless, walking around thinking like I'm the it sounds arrogant, but I'm probably among the five smartest people in the room, which is not good. Like I don't want to be among the five smartest people. I want to be like the one of the dumbest guys in the room, preferably, so I can
Yeah,
learn more, right?
sure.
And I remember walking around. I was like shit drunk, and I was still smarter than most people there, which wasn't. I mean, it wasn't pleasant. And for me, this was actually uh, like when I joined the war room. That was probably one of the biggest reasons for me to join the war room, because in the like, I'm sure in the Netherlands there are places where you can, you share thoughts with people that are actually a lot smarter than I am. But I didn't find them, even though I reached arguably the pinnacle of real estate, which is there's pretty big money in real estate. Like I talked to some really smart people, but still, like some of them I really like, some of them I really didn't. But for me, the biggest reason for joining the war room was this, basically wanting to share thoughts with people that were at a similar or higher level, probably, preferably higher than I was. And I got that through joining the war room, actually. Like people that were actually genuinely smarter than I was, which is a very pleasant thing. Like, at least for me, I don't get really intimidated by that. I'm very aware of what my weaknesses are. And I like being around really, really smart people. And that was the war room was that for me, really. So to answer your question, when I remember realizing that I was not at the right place when I won Agent of the Year, and I still couldn't find many people that were, woken up.
Mhm.
And I remember arriving when I got into the war room.
I think that's great, man. Yeah, that's one of the reasons too why I started this channel, because I want to talk to people that are a whole lot smarter than me. Like
Yes.
you, I don't get intimidated by it. I'm like, oh great, now there's shit to work on. There's something for me to improve. Like I find that refreshing psychologically. You know what I mean?
Man, I was in Dubai. I was talking to Luke, who was in Hustlers University and the War Room. He's also on what's the Tate Live channel called
Take
Tate.
Confidential.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see him every now and again there. The
Wait, is
dude
that
is
that's their cousin, right?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
The dude is really, really, really smart. Like standard deviations above my IQ. Guy is really smart, and he's very nice and humble about it. But he's really smart. And I was also talking to the crypto professors in Hustlers University, and I mean those guys are the same way. Like I remember listening to some of their stuff that they were talking about, not having any idea of what they were talking about. My English is close to perfect. Like I think I have a pretty decent grasp of vocabulary, but it's just the fact that the whole like trading talk, mathematical talk, those guys are on a different level. And for me, that's really nice because I know that whoever's like advice I'm following, it's very nice for me to know that they're much smarter than I am. Like otherwise, I'll just do it myself, right? But
Right.
these guys are like next level. Like I remember Adam talking about some sort of statistical standard deviation BS with formulas. I mean, I could live 1,000 years. I couldn't get it.
Right.
It's not in me, right?
Yeah.
But the only thing that is most important to me is that I beat him at Street Fighter 2. So that's the real,
That's all that matters, bro. Who are you in
yes,
Street Fighter?
yeah, that's how you really measure IQ. Street Fighter 2.
What are some? Because we're gonna wrap up here in a little bit, but what are some inviolable laws at the highest echelons of business? Like laws that you don't cross, you don't break.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you get when you get higher up and you notice that the pool of people that you deal with becomes smaller.
Right.
And you also notice that everyone is looking at everyone else all the time. Like, uh, there's very few secrets at that level. Like, if someone screws anyone else over, everyone knows very shortly after that. I remember, I don't know which Trump book that is in, but I remember reading a Trump book, and he bought some sort of rights for a skyscraper. Apparently in New York City you have to buy like the rights to build into a certain amount of height. And he made a deal with the guy on a handshake, and then someone else came in and offered the guy more money, and Trump said that he sort of assumed that this was it. And then he talked to the guy and he said, no, we made a deal. It was a handshake. Of course I could get more money, but we made a deal and I'm going to honor that deal. And if you're like in mid-level or low-level business, you get fucked over even if
Yeah.
you have a handshake, right? If you're in high-level business and someone fucks you over in a handshake, they're out. That's it. Like you're done. And it's the same thing the other way. Like if you try to squeeze a little bit more money out of someone and you made a deal previously with someone else, it's much more about honor than you would probably assume in general. Because in like for me, especially in real estate, there's a lot of scumbags in real estate, like absolute trash human beings. And I got up, and like even now, like I have some renovations to do at my house. Like I have a house it was built in 1910, so it
Mm.
always needs work. I love the house, but it always needs something. Like it's having a girlfriend that's 90, right? And you constantly have to do renovations on it.
Nip tuck, bro. Nip tuck, man.
Yeah. So, and nowadays, like whenever I need a builder or someone to bricklay or whatever, I'm just happy if they show up. Like that's an achievement. If they show up around the time that they said they would show up on the day, that's like I'm happy. But once you get to like a higher level, it's much more based on honor and the deals you make on a handshake. I think that's a big thing, and also I think everyone at that level, even if they proclaim to the outside that they're like action, that they're like a social justice warrior, or they're like concerned about climate change or whatever, everyone knows really what's up, and the SJWs don't exist at that level. They don't. Like maybe to the outside they do. In reality, they don't. They know what's up.
I mean, those people are usually not very productive at all, so it wouldn't make sense for them to be up there.
Yes, exactly. They'll associate with them if it fits the brand, but that's
right,
about it. Yeah.
right. That's funny that you say that. You know who Ed Lattimore is?
Yeah.
So I interviewed him last week, and he grew up in a really rough neighborhood. Grew up in the projects in Pittsburgh, and he said that it's based on an honor system and your reputation. So it's funny that at the very bottom level and at the very top level, it's based on the same exact thing.
It's the meme from the bell curve. You know that?
Yeah,
Like where you have the the whole where you have the guy in the middle of the bell curve is like the bug man that always has it wrong, and you have the start and the finish of the bell curve, and they have it right. It's the same thing.
right, right. Well, Arno, this has been great, man. You've given us some really top shelf advice, and thanks for sharing your story, brother. Let these people know where they can find you, where they can subscribe to your channel, and
Yeah,
yeah,
sure. Um, Probably the best thing. I mean, if you don't hate money, I would advise you to sign up for Hustlers University.
yeah.
You can find me in the halls there. I'm a professor there. You can also find me on YouTube. I'm sure we'll be able to include the link in the like in the description
Yeah.
box. And that's the main thing. Like I would advise you to sign up for Hustlers University and follow me on YouTube, and that's those are the main things I would push.
Yeah, I concur with that. Definitely. So the information, the link for Hustlers University is going to be in the description. Arno's YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and then go to his channel and like and share his videos and subscribe there because he's got some really awesome stuff. He's sitting by a fire in some of them, so it's a really cool sort of background.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, man, Arno, I'm gonna see you probably in a couple of minutes in the halls of Hustlers University and stuff. And again, thank you very much for your time, man. And this has been a pleasure, brother.
no problem. Well,
All
my
right, man.
pleasure, man. Thanks.
Thank you, brother. Peace. Later,
Bye
guys.
now.